And everybody, welcome to Sniper Sundays and the final Sniper Sundays of the year and of the decade, in fact, as we will be moving into 2020 very, very soon. Um, yeah, obviously moving into the new year next year. The markets have been a bit quiet the last week, obviously the Christmas period, and then as we come into the next week, we're also obviously moving into the new year with New Year's Eve and New Year's Day bank holidays coming up. So we are expecting a quiet week this week also, and then things really get back into the swing of things the following week, which is Monday, the 6th of January. So the week ahead, what we've got here, Monday, we have a little bit of news coming out, not really much. Some news, pending home sales from the US, Chicago PMI from the US. Tuesday, we have some China news and US dollar news. Bank holiday in New Zealand and Europe for Germany and in Japan as well. The Wednesday is obviously New Year's Day. So that is following New Year's Eve, New Year's Day on Wednesday. So more everywhere, everyone is a bank holiday everywhere. Thursday then, a little bit of news. Bank holiday in Japan still. So expect a quiet market and bank holiday all day in Japan on Friday. A little bit of news coming out in the US here and there, and the FOMC meeting on Friday. So not a lot planned on the calendar, but we did have quite a bit of movement, well, not quite a bit of movement, but we covered this already. We did have a bit of movement in the market last week, which is quite strange for the week in between Christmas, as we do normally see a little bit of volatility quiet down. Most people just down tools sort of thing, traders, and enjoy the Christmas period, which us as retail traders is what we should be doing. I am constantly watching the charts and keeping an eye on them, just to see if anything happens. But really, as a trader, especially as a retail trader, we're basically watching the moves on the market and seeing how the bigger funds and banks and so on move the market, and we're taking trades. But we don't want to be forcing trades at quiet times in the market and just trying to take a few pips here and there, and trading at times with lower liquidity. As a trader, it's all about being able to have self control and understanding that there's good times to trade in the market and bad times. And as explained, at times like this over Christmas is times where you should just really be doing your homework, looking back, rewatching videos in the group, rewatching webinars, back testing, practicing your trades, just doing as much research as possible and not trying to trade the market as it is quieter. So having that self-control to basically just stand back and say, I'm going to enjoy my Christmas and enjoy my New Year's sort of holiday season and holiday break, because you know that there's a whole year of trading ahead, 2020. And like I said, I see big trades coming in 2020, a few which I'm going to run over today. So even though it is going to be a quiet market next week, I want to run over some things that I think will be happening in 2020. So with that, with big trades sort of lining up, we don't need to try and force trades in the couple of weeks between the holiday season. So I would recommend that you sort of don't really trade around this period. If we do see anything, then we may take a trade. But really, it's a time to basically just observe the market and get ready for January. So with that said, I'm going to just run over and have a look at what I see at the moment in the market. Remember, for January going into New Year, I'll be getting new levels on these pairs to see if they still line up well, or if the key monthly and support and resistance levels have changed after the last 3 to 6 months of trading, and definitely obviously cleaning off the charts and then looking at how these levels line up with the yearly, now that we've had another year of price action in 2019. So we are in a great position, have all of our charts lined up for 2020. So before that, just looking with our current chart on Euro USD. So what I expect here, I'm expecting this to pull back down. I'm expecting this to perhaps pull a little bit lower, originally what I was saying before the Christmas break. But we retested off the back of this trend line and we've pushed up. Now, what I see on these pairs, I'm going to actually start with the US dollar. What I'm foreseeing at the moment with this, as I've been looking at quite a few pairs, and look at things into more detail. We want to get the year to kick off and really get some momentum going. But I see some more weakness first on the US dollar here. I see us pushing down. On the weekly here, we can just see how we're starting to see some weakness, and on the daily, I see this pushing down a little bit lower, and the US dollar overall getting weaker. Now, as to how weak with this next push down, we'll have to see. But I do see it coming down to on the US dollar index, maybe another 100 pips or so. From there, I think that we're then going to see a nice push up, a bullish US dollar, and then from there we're going to see an overall push down. So what we're looking at is something like that on the US dollar. On the US dollar index, and we can see here we're being very choppy around this level. You can see around here, just all of the last sort of year been up down, sort of contained within this area and quite choppy. So it hasn't been a great deal of movement. You can see here just lining up here on the weekly chart, where we've sort of got a neckline, got left shoulder, neckline, head. Coming down, I think we may come down and hit this as a neckline, and then push up to make maybe another right shoulder, and then push down and have a big sell off afterwards. So this is what I'm looking at the moment. So with a weaker US dollar, I'm expecting to see a stronger gold for the moment. Now on the weekly gold, so I'm just going to go over commodities and gold, because we know that the US dollar is something that we need to look at as it affects the market, as US dollar is the biggest currency in the world, and a lot of pairs, the major pairs, Euro USD, GBP USD, Aussie dollar, US dollar, NZD USD, are all against the US dollar. Obviously, they're the leading pairs and they're the major pairs. So here, what I'm expecting is to see this weakness push down. I'm expecting a weaker US dollar to begin with. Then when the year gets going, I'm expecting a stronger US dollar, and this is all going to build us up for the big sell-off, which I think is will be coming soon. If this structure continues to play out. Now, as I said, with the US dollar, that's what I'm expecting there. So with that in mind, with the US dollar, we can understand what may happen with gold. Gold is very important to understand what's going to happen with the US dollar as well. So we need to watch these two carefully. With a weaker US dollar, we normally see a stronger gold, and with a stronger gold, we normally see, or a weaker gold, we normally see a stronger dollar. So here we can see the weekly chart. Now, something I've just been looking at this, just been taking a step back and having a look on gold. You can see here, I haven't marked out all of these exactly with the figure here, but you can see that we're 1450, 1500, 1550, every 500 basically on gold. You can see works out as quite a good and accurate key level. Now, what I'm watching out for here, it's on a weekly fib. So we did have a weekly fib here. I'll just show you here. A, B. We had a C retracement to 38.2%, and then we took off. So C becomes the new A, which is here. And then we just extend this to the highs, and you can see we've also come down again as for a second time, made that 38.2 retracement. Now we know that this is the first retracement, but not always the strongest. But if we can see the bulls take over from here, it means that the bulls are quite strong. At the moment, what we can see is this is pushing back up higher. Now, if we just drop down to the daily chart here on gold, you can see that we have currently broken this daily trend line. Now, we were keeping an eye on this, and of course, it happened over Christmas, the last 3-4 days. We were expecting to see an explosion from here when we got sort of trapped within this triangle formation, and we've had that explosion now and broken up to the upside. However, as I expect the US dollar to continue weakening, I do expect a little bit more upside from gold. I was showing you this sort of resistance level here that we can see, this resistance. I think we might see a temporary pull back down to 1500, and from there we're going to see a push up. We may look at possibly not trading that short trade back down to 1500, but possibly if we have that pull down to 1500, I may be looking for us to take a long trade up, as I'm expecting a weaker US dollar, so I'm expecting to see gold actually push up a little bit higher. I do think we could come up to around the 1540, possibly 1550 level again, and then I'm expecting to see gold actually push down and see a bigger sell-off on gold. If I just go out to the weekly chart, and just zoom out on here, What we can also see here, this is big zoom out on the weekly. As we take a trend line across here on the weekly, you can see that 0.1, 0.2. We just zoom in here on a weekly now. We can see that the price has broken up to the upside, and we look like now we're going to come up and test this trend line for a third time. So we've broken out above 1500. I'm looking for a pullback possibly to 1500. From here, I'm expecting gold to break this resistance that we can see here. I'm going to look for a push up towards from 1500, push up towards this trend line. I don't think we'll come up and make new highs. Obviously things can change. I'm talking quite far in the future, like towards the end of January and so on at the moment. But this is an idea of what I'm looking at the moment. But more what's in front of us short term is to see a pullback to 1500 and then possibly be taken along from there. We're seeing a nice breakout here. I think this is going to continue higher, and we're going to see a third touch of this weekly trend line. If we come out and touch that weekly trend line and see rejection from there, we may then see a big sort of sell-off to the downside from there. And longer term next year, we may see a big sell-off on gold. Gold this year had a big push up with the sort of US and China and trade wars and so on. That's maybe coming to an end, so that may ease the want for a safe haven, and we could possibly see a push down. So these are ideas that I'm looking at, but more short term, we don't need to worry about that yet. We do obviously want to know what the bigger picture could possibly be and think of what the scenarios may be. But right now, coming into the next week or into the week after, once the momentum gets back into the market, looking for a bit of a pullback down to 1500 and then the market to push up, and then look at coming up to around 1540 where this trend line is on the weekly chart. So now that we have broken up above this, I do see to continue this push up higher, and from these levels will be very interesting to see. Perhaps when we see the weaker US dollar come down to around this level here, if we did see a stronger US dollar and we did come back up to around these levels, then that may be where we see the sell-off on gold, which would be quite interesting. So a few different scenarios there. Long term, short term, expecting this to find some resistance at this daily resistance. As explained before, we always expect to find some resistance when we hit a resistance area. Just because we find one daily doji candle doesn't mean that it's a short trade. That's why we always need to wait for confirmation. But I do think, however, that we're going to see some resistance from this level. And as we pull back down and see some resistance, we may make a new higher low as this takes a breather after the breakout. And then we see another move up to the upside if 1500 can hold. So that's quite interesting there. And with that now, so we go back to Euro USD. What I'm looking at here is we've broken out to the upside. We've broken out of this trend line here. We came back, retested as support. Now we're coming back up to try and break higher. If we just adjust this trend line as per the trend line strategy, we can see here that we're attempting to break out. At the moment, I'm going to be watching as price is around this area. This is going to be very interesting. Again, I think what we may see is initially a weaker US dollar, and then from there we may see a stronger US dollar push all the way back down, as I explained. Initially weaker US dollar and then a stronger US dollar, and then we may see then from here we may see the bigger push up. I think that Euro USD is now going to be ready for that bigger push up to the upside. You can see here on the daily now, we are currently, if we just take from the very low point here, we can see here we made a higher high and we made a higher low, and we made a double bottom on that higher low. We now came up and made a higher high, but it wasn't really a higher high. We just wicked above and then brought in short sellers into the market. Now we've seen a bullish push back up, having rejected this breakout of on this trend line here. We came back, so we broke out, retested, and now we're continuing. If we can break up and make a new higher high and break out of this trend line here, we can break up and make a new higher high into this region, then this confirms this uptrend. You can see here, we've got a push up, we've got a push down, and now we're having that push up. So if we don't make a double top here, like how we made a double bottom here, if this pushes on to make a new higher high above this high here, then I do expect price then from here to come back down and make a new higher low before going off to then make a new higher high. So quite interesting times in the market. I think that 2020 is going to be bringing very, very, very big trades. I'm actually really excited for the year to get started. I see some big trades coming. I see some intraday trades before the big swings happen. I think we're going to see some choppiness in the market at the start of January, but a choppiness in a good way, which means that, for instance, if this does push up and make a new high, we can be looking at taking a short back down to these levels, which is a nice couple of 100 pips there. And from there, then we can be looking at taking longs. Sorry, that's the wrong tool. Looking at taking long trades, which we could be holding for quite some time. So yeah, interesting times. That's an idea of what we could be looking at. But short term, it's going to be important to see how price acts around here. We can push up into here, break above this level here. So I'm just going to raise this up so we can see exactly where we need to come up. We can come up above this previous daily high and come up into this level and close on a daily close on a daily candle to confirm the new higher high. Then we will be then waiting and watching to take a short back down, and then as I said, a long trade to confirm a new leg up. But at the moment, I do think that it looks like the tide is turning for this Euro USD long-term downtrend. See on the weekly, higher low. If it can confirm a higher high, then we'll be looking at trading this pair to come down and make a new higher low. So interesting times. Euro GBP, this one's been pushing up higher. We've sort of thrown a fib on here that works out beautifully, and we can see here that was when we lined this up with 0.8600. Why is it beautiful? Because we can see how the 61.8 golden retracement level lines up perfectly with 0.8400. It just lines up absolutely perfectly. So I'm still expecting that to happen. And what I mean by that is I'm still expecting this price to push up to this level and then see a pull down. So what I'm going to be looking at for is price to push up to that level. We can see if we drop down to the 4 hour here, we've had this nice morning star formation. On this 4 hour trend, we're making higher highs, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and we look like we could go off and push up to this level. From this level, then we may see a really nice swing trade down to these levels, couple of 100 pips, and then from that level, again, this looks quite strong. Looks like this may now be bottoming out after about 1,000 pip move from the very top. We see a retracement here. You can see this big massive move down, guys. This big massive 1,000 pip move that we actually took in the group, and I'm still holding a small percentage on this. And if we do have this retracement, then we'll be looking for that hedge trade. So then I'll be hedged against this short from the very top. So yeah, you can see here on the weekly, we've had a weekly bullish engulfing the previous week. We're now pushing up. Now what we want to see is that retracement back down to that 61.8%, hopefully, and then we have a really nice entry for a big swing trade. So that's another one that's looking really interesting. There's quite a few trades that, as I said, I can see what I'm thinking is going to play out for 2020, for the early part anyway. But I won't overload it today because it's a bit too much. I'll talk a little bit more about what I see sort of short term. So as I said, at the moment, I still expect this to push up to 0.8600, and from there we'll be looking at taking short trades. Where are we? Euro NZD. Euro NZD, plain and simple at the moment. Just want to show you how simple it can be. Weekly chart, we can see here that we've broken the weekly trend. But of course, we haven't broken the trend. We've only broken the trend line until we break the last higher low. So you can see this level here. This is the important level for Euro NZD. Now, we have broken. We haven't come down and tested that support yet. We've been majorly bullish on the New Zealand dollar the last 3-4 weeks. The New Zealand dollar has been very bullish. I think it still needs to bottom out here. I don't think it's time just yet. Just like how when I get to New Zealand US dollar, I think it has a little bit more upside. But with this here, Euro NZD, this level here is definitely going to be an interesting level. With that short trade on this from 9 weeks ago, that hit 1,000 pips last week Friday, which is amazing achievement on a trade. And we've had a good few thousand pip trades since the community opened 6 months ago, 7 months ago. We've had more than half a dozen or 1,000 pip trades. So now we'll be looking at this, and I do think that once we get down to this level, I think it is a big swing trade back up. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. Keeping an eye on the lower time frames. We're seeing a little bit of some bullishness on the 4-hour here at the moment. If so, I won't be worried. I will want to see this have a little push up. Because we're so bullish on the New Zealand dollar, I'm not trying to pick the bottom on this at the moment. I'm going to let this show us what it's doing. Let us show us if there is bullishness in the a bullish momentum to come in. And then if so, we will see a pullback. And then from there, we can take that sniper entry with that extra confirmation and that push up and hold a long trade. But at the moment, this is one of my favorites coming into 2020. But I'm keeping an eye on it here. And as I said, this last high low is going to be a key level. We could even come back down and retest that and make an equal high low. But keeping an eye out on that one, and I will update. Euro JPY is another one. Kept it quite clean here. Just showing you on the weekly chart. If we just make it very simple and just zoom out on the weekly chart, what can we see? Right, we can see, well, we had a big move down. Big move down. Then we've seen the bullishness come into the market. We made a high, we came down, made a higher low. We then made a higher high, and we made a higher low. We're now pushing up and making a higher high. We did have this sort of shooting star on a weekly, which was false. And we can see now that we've had, if I just drop down to the daily, that we've actually now broken out of this counter trend line. Really strong candle on, really strong daily candle, breaking out that counter trend line. And now this looks like it's going to go up and make a new higher high. So what I'm looking at Euro JPY is to actually go higher. Not touching this at the moment now, especially as we're going to be quite weak. And the Japanese yen is basically, I think there's only 1 or 2 days that is not a bank holiday next week. So I won't be looking at trading any Japanese yen pairs until the following week. But I do expect this to push up higher and make a new higher high. Once it does that, once it achieves that, then I'll be keeping an eye on this one. From there, we'll be coming back to these important resistance levels over in this area. As you can see, if I just get rid of that for the moment, we just sort of highlight this area. But until then, I'll be just watching and seeing this pair push up to around these levels. Euro NZD we covered. Euro JPY we covered. There's a few other pairs. I'm not going to throw too much into the mix because we do need to get to see a bit more movement from the market. I'm just going to show you pairs that are the most interesting at the moment and ones that really interest me coming into 2020. GBP USD. GBP USD. Guys, I think that this is going to push up higher. Like I explained, after that big push up, we saw this was a really sort of manipulative push up with on the back of the English news or the UK news. We had a 500 pip, 600 pip push up to the upside. Then we've had a big sell off. Now, just before Christmas break, this did pop up during the Christmas week. This did pop up from these levels over the Christmas week. Like I explained that like I explained, we were expecting this to actually do. And now from these levels, I do think we're going to push up a little bit higher. And then once we push up a little bit higher, in line with what I'm saying with Euro USD and the US dollar, I'm expecting US dollar weakness to begin with. I'm looking at this coming up to around 1.3250. And then from there, we put this fib on. We come up to around 50%, pop up even a little bit higher to maybe the 61.8% retracement. I see a really nice short trade from around these levels. That'll be, we've got a nice confluence for a target here, down at 1.2750. We have a few confluences to actually take a short here. We got the back of this broken trend line, which is one resistance. We got the Fibonacci retracement, which may be either the 50 or the 61.8% on, which will be second confluence. And then we got the weekly resistance of 1.3250 as well. So initially, I'm looking for GBP to push up higher. If we can find entries, if this makes a pullback, if we can find entries for this to push up higher, we will be looking for it. So, but in general, at the moment, what I'm thinking is for pound to initially show a push up higher, and then I'm looking for a bigger push down as we retrace a part of this large move here. And then once we've once we see this sort of find resistance and finish this up move, then we'll be looking at a big short down. Here you can see we're looking at about 500 pips or even more. So similar situation with BJPY. Again, I'm looking for this to sort of make a retracement on this large move back down. We're coming up. I think we could come back up to even 1.45 or 145, sorry, and then see a bigger move down. But again, Japanese yen pair is going to be quiet next week, so I'm not really looking to trade it. Same as USD JPY. Do think we can still pop up and tap that that weekly resistance level, but this is really not doing much. And as I said, we might see a weaker US dollar first, but depending on what the Japanese yen does, we may just see this come up and tap that 110 level. But this has been such a boring pair. I'm not really. This isn't really on the top of my watch list. I'll keep an eye on it, but it's not something that we're going to be watching directly. USD CAD, nice and simple again. Really nice and clean. Just showing you the weekly trend line here, which we have broken. But of course, we can see here what's the important level. It's going to be this level here. We're breaking out. We haven't broken this this last support here. We just dropped down to the daily. We can see that we have this sort of nice daily spike to the downside, and I'm very, very, very interested in USD CAD. If USD CAD comes down into these levels, this could be a very, very interesting trade. Again, weaker US dollar to begin with. I see the USD CAD possibly pushing down a little bit lower. Could even come down into sort of these regions, as we can see here with this form of support. And then from there, we might be seeing a nice long trade back up, possibly back up to retest this trend line. And then once we see that, might come up and take up these previous highs here. We then would be looking at a longer term short trade. If I just look up here, but this is the sort of thing that I'm looking at the moment. Seeing that expecting the US dollar to sort of weaken off initially, and then from there we might see a bullish US dollar. If we do see this play out on the US dollar index, if this support does hold here, which is an important support and level, as we can see here on the weekly, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. This is the weekly higher low. We come down here, tap this level, we can see us rebound and find some bullishness on the US dollar and come back up towards these levels. So with that, we may see the US dollar, Canadian dollar push all the way back up to around this, back up to the top. But I'm expecting some weakness first, and I'm going to be watching very, 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 very carefully around this level for a nice long trade. With that, sort of USD Swiss was a sort of similar situation. I had this drawn on from before Christmas. We broke out of that daily range we'd been in for a long, long time. I'll just get rid of that. You can see that we've now broken out of this daily trend line. We'll just go to the weekly chart here. You can just see what's happening there. But again, we may see this just drop off a little bit more. I'm going to be watching this over the next week or so. You can see this sort of support level here. You can see this drop off a little bit more, and then we might see some nice bullishness come into the market for the US dollar to push us back up to around these regions. So USD CAD, with that, we can see that this has some more downside, possibly before us looking at a long trade, which relays well with Aussie dollar. So Aussie dollar, we know, has an inverse correlation with USD CAD. So here at the moment, again, what I'm just looking at on Aussie dollar is Aussie dollar is very, very, very weak at the not at the moment, but has had a big push down in 2019 and was at very, very, very low levels. Let's just have a look here. Yeah, we can see here we're at levels where we hadn't been since back in 2009, so about 10 years ago. So Aussie dollar was very, very weak. Aussie dollar seems to now be making a turn. You can see here we've had a sort of triple bottom on a weekly, high, or double bottom. We made a high here, higher low. We're making a higher high here now on Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar though, very, very strong last week. Daily here we can see very, very strong as well. Make a higher low. We broke above. We made an equal high here. Made a retracement, and now we were pushed up even higher, using this third sort of that third touch of the trend line to be that catalyst to be able to push up. See how strong the third touches of the trend line are. And we can see here on the daily a really nice morning star formation. 1, 2, 3 candlestick formation. Stronger on the higher time frame, the daily time frame. 1, 2, 3, and then a big push up to the upside. So we've now taken out the previous high. and we now made a higher high. So what we're looking at here is like the other trades, I won't be looking at trying to find a top on this at the moment. We're going to let this develop. We can see here we've got the monthly resistance at 0.7050 on Aussie dollar, which this could easily keep pushing up and keep pushing up higher first. With this very bullish sort of train that we're on at the moment, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullish days, we could see this keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. And with that, it could keep pushing up, but keep just below this level. This level is going to be quite interesting to watch out for. And again, this plays out with the weaker US dollar first. So we could see that Aussie dollar continues this push up, pushes up into this level, and then we see a bullish US dollar, and we see Aussie dollar take a breather and come back down to make a new higher low, which could be all the way back down to as far as this level here, because this is the higher low on the daily chart. I'll just put a new trend line across there. We could pull back all the way back down as far as sort of this level here, or even back to 0.6875. But short term, I do see this continuing to push up. So however, if we do see a little pullback, we might see a pullback to sort of retest these levels here, and then we could see a push back up. But initially, I'm looking at Aussie dollar bullishness continuing at the moment to these levels. So if Aussie dollar can continue stronger, USD CAD will push down lower to around these levels as well. And then if Aussie dollar does weaken from the levels shown of the monthly resistance, then we will see some bullishness come into the USD CAD and start to push this back up. NZD USD, sort of similar situation as Aussie dollar. Again, very, very bullish. Again, here I've shown on the weekly chart how bullish this has been. A little bit choppy around here, a bit choppy around here. Did show signs of weakness on the lower time frames, but overall, it's been very, very bullish. Now, the level that I'm watching out for is if we just look at this on a weekly, we can see lower low, lower high, lower low. But this level here is an important level as it's going to act as a form of resistance. So here, I'm going to be looking out for price to pop up into that region. We're trying to break the monthly resistance, weekly resistance, sorry, at the moment, 0.6700. Here is the form of resistance sitting just above. So I'm watching price and how we react around this level. Again, possibly weaker US dollar initially, and a stronger NZD, New Zealand dollar to begin with. I'll be watching price around here. We could make a double top, and then from here, it's time for this to come back down and make a new higher low and to have a bit of a breather. We've got to watch this one and see how it plays out and see how the New Zealand dollar is going to behave overall. We can see we've got a sort of trend line on here. We take this across here. We could come back down and retest this daily trend line. As we can see here, come all the way back down, similar to Aussie dollar and US dollar. So here is the area we're going to be watching out for. We're going to expect this to break above the 0.6700, make a push above, maybe up to 1.16800, and if we can push up to 0.6800, here may be a very, very, very nice level to take a short trade. From the top and push this back down, but we're going to wait and see how this acts up within this region. I'm expecting this to push up and break through, especially with the current New Zealand dollar strength and the Aussie dollar weakness that I'm expecting. And then that would also, the Aussie dollar and the New Zealand dollar would also work out with what I'm explaining with gold. We know that they correlate with gold, or gold can influence the Aussie dollar and New Zealand dollar. So should we see gold push up to these regions here and come out and touch that weekly trend line, we know that pairs, currencies, everything magnetizes to these trend lines. So we know if this pushes up to around this region here and continues to push up, that's going to help push up the New Zealand dollar and help push up the Aussie dollar to reach those levels. Then if we do tap that level and we see a reversal on gold, we could see a big reversal on New Zealand dollar and Aussie dollar. So lots to take in there, lots to think about. I'll update more during the week because there's quite a bit to take in there. But I'm really starting to look at the bigger picture and what we can be expecting over sort of the next, the first month or 2 months of 2020 and possibly even longer. I think we're going to have some really nice sort of 100, 200 pip moves and intraday trades to begin the year off with, just as things are developing and getting away to the point where we're going to have lots of swing trades. which I predict. So I predict very big swing trades for the entries probably about the end of January, possibly maybe a little bit later, and there'll be ones that we're going to hold for a long time, for hundreds and hopefully thousands of pips. But what is quite exciting before that is, I think we can see that there's going to be a bit of choppiness, like a couple of hundred pips here, a couple of hundred pips there, as the prices fluctuate and get into those regions where we're ready to take the really big swing trades from the tops and the bottoms. So looks like it's going to be a very good January, and a very profitable one as well. So really excited by the looks of things. I'm going to continue doing more analysis on lots of other pairs, and then update you guys with that. These are the main pairs that we're looking at the moment. So going to keep an eye on these, see how these sort of develop over the next week or so. Remember, next week we do expect it to be quiet, and I'll update you guys with a day. We'll have a catch up and do a live stream, and go over some stuff and speak about some topics. So while the market's quiet, we can improve and push on with some other aspects of trading. Hope you all have a great evening. I hope you're all enjoying your Christmas break and the New Year's break. Yeah, and have a good one. I will catch up with you tomorrow. If there's movement in the market, I will update with morning and evening calls. But if the market is very quiet, I may just do a daily update. We'll see what happens. If it's business as usual, I will be doing videos as usual, because I'm watching the markets anyway. But if there's nothing happening in the market, there's no point talking for the sake of talking. I'll update the group and just explain that the market's quiet and so on. Have a great evening, guys. I'll speak to you soon.